This is like Raven Story, Wild Unknown, Past Life Cards, and the Wise Spirit. Wise Wood Spirit? Wise Spirit? Kathy? Spelling with a K or a C. I want to get it right. Bill Garcia. Kathy with a K or a C?
With a K.
Kathy.
Yes.
Is it Kathleen or is it Kathy?
Kathy.
Is it Kathleen or is it
Catherine?
Catherine. Thank you. For some reason, I like to spell it because it helps me focus. We're getting shades of the orphan again, but this is lower class and then disowned. So this is very much shades of the orphan by way of Moses. Now, if you're not into Bible story or whatever, that's what I'm getting. It's orphan by way of Moses. And I don't know that you went to the upper class, but you got sent by your bio mom to an adoptive mom. And that's where the disowned is. It wasn't they were trying to take your title. It was a preservation of life. Distant relation helped accommodate this, helped move this forward. Because of this being in your history and in your backstory, this is where you became more and more proactive and activist for whatever your cause was. It allowed you independence and gifts that you would not have had it been a more traditional thing. This doesn't feel 1600s, and it doesn't feel even particularly foreign. It feels like 1880s, 1890. That's really close. That's unusual for time to be that close. In the past lives, usually I'm going further than that. But 1880s, 1890. There's something about this that was difficult. This is just giving me shades of the conception and what was happening. You were given by your mom to have better life, better circumstance because of the difficulty, not just that she didn't offer a lot, but there was also difficulty in the conceiving of you. I don't think it's that they were trying. I think something unfortunate has happened to her. She had her own difficult paths to deal with and a devil to deal with. So I think she was taken advantage of, and that's the polite way of putting it. And I think that in this particular past life, because that had happened, she wanted you clear of any of these devil type people that would not serve the child well. Yeah, there was judgment. There would have been so much judgment against you just for being the bastard child, the illegitimate child, the child that was the product of something that wasn't supposed to be happening. She knew better. She knew advanced beyond her years, and she became Queen of Cups because of it. Transformed her to the Mother of Cups. Transformed her to Swan, from duckling to swan. It made her inner wisdom and her own inner sense of self sing out, and it made her very, very beautiful. She was beautiful before, but she's even more beautiful because of what has happened. And she had known a lot of pain. Now, on your side, going forward, you got release, you got freedom. She was crafty and sly. She understood how to not self-sabotage, what that she could do to help lift you out of it. Doves outside my place are cooing right now. That's interesting. There's an innocence lost is what I'm getting. And she wanted the innocence to be preserved as she could for you. Family helped make this happen in a really great way. So what happened to you? You weren't necessarily hidden. I don't think that what happened to her, she let other people know was really going on. It feels like you as a child weren't hidden, her pregnancy was. So the fact of your existence in this past life didn't work against you. It was her choice to do it in such a manner, so it didn't work against you. I'm getting lower class again. Not that you were classless, but your station in life would have been higher if it had been more condoned, is the word that's coming through. But it wasn't. So your station changed, but you got the advantage of not having the station as a burden for you. You got light, you got fields, you got play, you had freedom, a lot of unparalleled freedom. There weren't people constantly watching you. To make this happen and pull this off was quite the coup. And you became more like the common people than the higher born. I don't know how to put that, but that's what it is. There was this really great time, a really great summer, where things, as soon as this happened, as soon as this sacrifice was made, gifts flow forward, forward, forward. Everything around you, everything around those that help facilitate this, and everything around her, flowing like water, gifts, 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 gifts. The family you went to had to do a little bit more labor. They were of the working class, is what I'm getting. Laboring class. Something about harvest time. Now, I don't get that these guys are actually farmers. What I'm getting is they did something that was more like a seasonal thing. Recently in Utah, there's been a fuck ton of snow. If your family does snow plows, it's a seasonal thing, but it might be lean at other times. It used to be teachers always had the summer off. They always working in the summer anyway. But, you know, it was a seasonal type of thing that your family did. And at harvest time, it was big, big, big. So at that time of year, things became big. It's like the energy of back to school time, or when this would be. This feels like fall energies was the seasonal energy of when your family did what it did. I don't know if you guys made coats and then everybody got back to school coats. I have no idea. But that's what it's looking like. Let's see if we can get more information on that. The family's occupation, because I think it's something that's important that you learn to do and you carry. Is that right? Is that right? Yes. You travel certain paths. There is this bit of fortune teller energy. There is this bit of Romany traveling energy. You travel the same routes, do the trade routes, the trade shows, the trade fairs, and you know the wild stuff. You know the nocturnal journey. This is very interesting. You know the way of the barn owls, and you know the magic. It's like somebody knows about the pointing finger. Now this says soothsayer, but I'm getting pointing finger in references to a Agatha Christie. The pointing finger was all this gossips and malicious campaign energy and gossipy snipe. All the hot goss your family knew because you traveled. You knew and you carried. You couriered messages around. You brought messages and couriered them. You also brought the hot goss, and you connected to fairy and gnome realm. I don't know why. People think fairy and gnome, and I'm sure they just think pretty much England. But there's fairy and gnome realm in lots of places, believe it or not. If you haven't heard of that before, some people haven't. It surprised me because I used to only think of it in that way, but it's beyond that. Winter's Throne and September's Sweet Temptation. It's like berry festivals you would also need to be aware of. Yeah, you guys followed the festivals. You followed things really well. And then Winter's Throne is like you would hunker down in wintertime. So whatever you were doing, traveling along, you would prepare to be down in the winter, in the throes of winter. And You would understand the seasons, like when strawberries were on, or when, I don't know, blackberries were on, or whatever. You would understand that really well. You traveled and you migrated, but you weren't always like, you weren't the laborers, the field laborers, which is strange. You traveled in accordance to what their need was. You mined the miners, so to speak. When people did all the gold rush and the gold mining, then a boomtown would come. Then everybody would go in. Well, they needed pickaxes and they needed pans and they needed this and that. They needed horses, or they needed tent supplies. They needed to be able to have certain kinds of pants or certain kinds of gear. You understood that aspect of it. Your family understood that kind of business of it. You had connections. You knew what would be necessary for people when winter would hit. You would know this. Nuts. Crazy a little bit to me. I think this is the Spirit Song Tarot. What's going on here? This is a lot of animal, but it's the deck that calls, so it's the deck that calls. Strategy and resilience and armadillos. This is something, this is giving me also climates where there would be humid weather, that would be knowing how to deal with humidity. I'm getting shades of mosquito netting. Now, what this has to do with anything, I have no fucking clue. But you guys knew of supplies. You would follow the trade routes and bring supplies for different people when they needed it. And you brought magical things, like things that hadn't come to an area and hadn't been there before. Okay. Like when the military would have a sugar-coated candy that became M&Ms for us. Nobody had put sugar on chocolate before, but it became quite a thing and kept it a little bit longer. And then there was sugar to keep the energy level up, that kind of thing. All kinds of feathers energy. Stealthy as the leopard and magic as the dragonfly. Coming in, exploring, discovery, and this is the raccoon. Very, very clever. You knew what the shiny new object was before people would know they even wanted it. It helped change your station in the world. You learned to travel and do business. This is a savvy, shrewd business knowledge. A canny way of seeing the need before it's there in a very timely manner. You might know when people need like jerky or dried meats or candied this or that or fruit jam or, hey, here's this local bread thing. And you guys knew and you brought it in ahead. It's like you had enough knowledge and enough intuition and seeing before it became necessary that all of a sudden, ding, here you were with an abundance of it. That's just wild. Okay. What else do we need to know? You traveled this way a long time as a kid, and I think some people would think, oh, you want to run away from this one. You loved it. You weren't the snake oil salesman, but you were a salesman who loved to sell and loved to connect and loved the networking, social butterfly to the big time, advocated, brought new things in, did things in a way that was unusual, that brought new and new and new. Here's you with your chariot, your wagon, your car, call it what you will, bringing in the newfangled shit. Like, you would have been somebody that brought, toasters to town. People like, what? This makes toast for us? Craziness. You had a lot of ingenuity too, and you could see it and network it around you. Yeah, and you brought it forward. You also would bring, okay. You would also bring through pigs and piglets. You knew it was something that farmers could have, that you would bring a pair of pigs, and they were good pigs. You would bring pigs to the people that needed them, and that was something that people actually needed, because then the pigs could be on the farm, and then they could be ham later or create other little piglets, and that helped other people have more little piglets. You brought abundance, and I'm getting pigs and piggy banks and money and wealth to others because you supplied literally the fucking pigs. You would understand different breeds of different things and see different things. Wild. Yeah. You understood both the Queen and King of Wands merchant stuff. You understood this. You were in love with the travel, in love with the road, in love with the journey, in love with the sales, in love with being a merchant, in love with all the ingenuity. And you loved seeing all the different people. You were just very much the journeyer, the traveler. Then you didn't feel like a lack. You were just creating and creating and creating. This wasn't a life where it was like, well, did I fall in love? Did I marry? Did I have kids? No, that wasn't the focus. You may have done that, but the focus that's coming through is the way you facilitated growth, change, and industry and connection in a time before there were like interstate highways and roads that were easy traveling in cars. You still facilitated connections and supplies. Like in America, if you think about all the pioneers crossing out before there was roads and all that, they had to have their supplies stocked in their freaking covered wagon and all of that too. They had to know what they needed to go across. You'd have like your finger on the pulse of that all the time. All the time. Trade routes and how the trade routes went. Not just east, west, north, south too. Sometimes you'd have to travel really far. Like you would travel on a broken arm and a limp and get the job done. You were like fiercely determined, strongly determined. This is you traveling. This is like a couple of times so you would travel through past the point of your own pain to get the job done. The work ethic was huge. The sales ethic and the love of sales, good. But you wouldn't sell somebody a bum thing. Nah. If there was no reason or purpose for it, or if there was a bad something or other, you didn't care. Your priority was not the money. As long as you had enough money to keep going on the road, you were happy to do so. And even as you got older, you didn't want to settle down.
I feel a native connection.
You would see the magic cup after magic cup after magic cup, and you'd bring it to the people. You didn't bring it all pie in the sky all at once. You would see the need and go for one that was what the people's need was and bring it to them. And that was the reward. Over and over you did this, and you rebalanced things. You would deal with all walks of life. And you had a way of chameleon, a way of blending in with the people. They'd be excited when you came. You weren't seen as like a weirdo or a tramp or a hobo or a bum. No. You had a way of conducting yourself because of the station of your birth, because of how you landed. You landed in a way where you could speak clearly and concisely. You would know perhaps things as far as reading and mathematics and letters and learned things that were considered a good knowledge base at the time. So you weren't considered as disreputable or uncredible. You were considered very credible. And you learned and you knew how to turn the tumbleweed to the Christmas tree, the value of the coin. You were the businesswoman, inspired businesswoman. And nocturnal travel was your favorite. You didn't worry about like getting robbed at night or anything like that. But you were stealthy. You could travel and see things down the pike before they were. You had this inspired visionary aspect of what you did. Anything else? This was just your karma. You had to bring balance to different communities through what you did, through your industry, and through bringing it through. And you were steady, consistent, reliable. If you said to somebody, okay, I'm not going to see you again until probably next spring, what is it you think you need or anything you need me to look for? And they'll be like, you know what I do. You'll know if you see anything that you think I'll need, bring it on out. We'll cut a fair deal. And you're like, okay. There was a lot of trust placed in your ability to interact with merchants that were further away and bring what these people needed. It was huge. So whether it was pigs or who knows. I mean, they used to send chicken eggs in the mail through the U.S. Post Office. Things like that used to really happen. And you weren't the mailman. You were more the merchant that delivered. But yeah, that's what I've got. It was you balancing the scales of the day-to-day in and out and inner workings of life. And that's complete. Wow. Yeah. Your insight is good. Your insight will still be good. You'll still think in these unusual, trippy kind of ways. But that's what I've got. That feels complete. Wild. Yeah. Yeah. It just, I just never know. I'm telling you, I never know where these readings will go, but you guys always know. They're always familiar to you. It's like, okay, Trust what's coming through, even if it sounds nutty as nutty as nutty.